Welcome back for a brand new episode of Jori Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host Jori, and on today's episode, we have quite the rundown for you, from all the drama and semantics of the last half of the NFL season to what's going on in the NBA with ratings, in the All-Star Game format, and so forth, so on. Plus, I'm introducing a new segment called the Starting Five, where we go in depth about 5 random teams in the NBA and what they're doing and what they have been doing. The good thing is there will be plenty to talk about. The list is fluid and continuous. Without further ado, we got a full slate ahead. So tune in, turn your volume up, and let's get into it. Excuse me. First off, we're going to start in the National Football League, and I'm going to talk about the NFL MVP race. And I'm going to go in depth about it. So names that have been mentioned: Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson. Now that people are all of a sudden figuring out what the word valuable means, most valuable, Joe Burrow. Other noteworthy candidates previously: Derrick Henry, maybe Jared Goff, Sam Darnold. But let's talk about the people who are noteworthy candidates, like the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons, the Saquon Barkleys, the Josh Allen. Now, my thing about the MVP, most valuable player, is not necessarily conducive to best performing player. And I think that's where we as a society has gotten it messed up. Some groups of fans have gotten it messed up, where they think the best performing player, the best stat holder or best performing player is the most valuable player. No, there's offensive player of the year for that reason. Valuable means what you do tremendously affect this team. Like Joe Burrow has single-handedly kept the Bengals season afloat because the defense is trash and they're still playoff eligible right now, despite losing as many games as they have. That's valuable. What Jared Goff has been doing, that's valuable. Even though you could say he has help with the run game. What Josh Allen has been doing with the state of the wide receiver room that has been previously unknown talent, but they're very young, so there's room to grow. What he's been doing with that, how they have Buffalo at the number 2, chasing that number 1 spot. Actually, no, Chiefs got it. I misspoke, the Chiefs have it. But they're the number 2. Considering that we all thought that the Bills were going to fall off, and now they still have the number 2 seed a year later. And with Josh taking care of the ball, making sound decisions, and leading this team and how they've been playing, Josh Allen has a very solid argument for MVP. And so does Joe Burrow, because his secondary in the defense is absolutely tragic. I will discuss about Lamar Jackson. I want to preface this by saying, I think Lamar Jackson is a phenomenal player. I like Lamar Jackson. I know he's a special talent. However, with the way the Ravens are currently operated and how they run and where they've seen the most success at, is definitely not the most valuable person on that team. Now, that Cincinnati game, yeah, that was a shootout, and he had to win that. But all of the other wins, most of the other wins, usually your running back is getting 20 to 25 carries a game. And is very effective when doing it. Now, the games that he only has less than 20 and is not very effective, you don't win. That is a recurring theme. So Is Lamar the most valuable player on that team? Or is Derrick Henry the most valuable player on that team? That's a very real question that a certain group of fans need to ask themselves. I'm not discounting what Lamar Jackson is doing, but it's easier to put up stats like that when you have a linebacker at running back. See Ryan Tannehill. It's so much easier because having a back like that is considered a luxury. And the fact that they ruined his MVP campaign in them 5 losses in which he didn't do much. They ruined that. He could have, where he's at right now, he's almost at 1,800 yards. He could have been well on his way to 2K for a second straight year. Not a second straight year. But for a second year. They ruined that. I don't like it. That's my thing about Lamar Jackson. I'm like, statistically, if we're just going based off of stats, Joe Burrow needs to get it because Joe Burrow has the best statistical line out here. He's thrown for 4,300 yards. He's taken care of the ball for the most part. He has fumbled. I will say he's lost a lot of fumbles this year. But he's been airing it out. Because he knows that they have to score on every drive. Because their defense can't stop a nosebleed. So if we're just going based off of stats and not the overall impact, even though most valuable player and the word valuable means we shouldn't even be going by stats at all. Because sometimes your value is not dictated on a stat sheet. And some of these Ravens fans are really dismissing what the running back brings to uplift the quarterback. I'm like, that's not fair. Don't do that. Because that running back is the main makes it a lot easier for your quarterback to do quarterback things. Even though I could have a whole show about Lamar Jackson and quarterbacking. I could have a whole show about that, but I'm not going to. So I'm being a little long-winded here, but I'm going to get straight to the point. My MVP favorites right now, considering where Cincinnati is, Joe Burrow has leapt back into that conversation. I know because they're a 9-lose team. Is that really because of Burrow or is that because of the defense? And when your defense is bad, your offense presses it, which leads to game-changing mistakes. I know this because I'm a Titans fan. But, yeah. But one thing I will say about the Bengals, and I'm kind of getting off topic here, is that Zach Taylor needs to figure out how to stop starting slow. Get everybody on one accord by week 3. Now, come on now. You've been there for way too long for this to continue to be an issue. But, back to the MVP. I'm still saying Josh Allen. Saquon is still in it because he hit 2K. Joe Burrow's in it. Lamar Jackson is in it. Because I can't leave him out because I'll have angry feather brains at me. But it's up between them 4. And I will put Allen, Burrow, Barkley, Lamar in that order. Next, I know this is a little bit of old news, but we gotta cover it because he's slated to come back this week versus my team. And what week How is it not awesome to refresh what got him suspended? Now, let's talk about Mr. Aziz Al-Shaair, who was formerly of the Tennessee Titans last year, as you remember. And he's been fined. He got fined from a questionable hit on us last year. So, not on us, but with us last year. So, this is nothing new when it comes to Aziz Al-Shaair. But I do feel quite strongly. And I'm going to get on Michael Parsons behind in a minute. Let me run through the slated schedule. And then I'll go back and let Michael Parsons hear it. Because I'm about tired of him. Aziz Al-Shaair. Let's hear the facts with the situation. He hit Trevor Lawrence with his forearm that was braced while Trevor was clearly giving himself up as he was sliding. That's a dirty play. What are the repercussions? Al-Shaair was suspended for 3 games, is not eligible to return until week 18 versus Tennessee. They come to Nashville. If you do something like that versus my quarterback, I need somebody to fight. And it was upheld due to the repeated violations of the rules. Again, what other professions do you get 7 warnings? Because he's been fined 7 times. Take those as warnings. Do you get 7 warnings before they suspend you? What other profession do they do that? Money talks. Let's talk about the money that he lost because of this crap. That hit ended up voiding his $9 million guaranteed 2025 salary. Also, he was missing out over $300 worth of game checks due to his suspension. That's a lot of money. He missed 3 games. So that's $9.3 million. If I'm being right? He's lost out on that. And people would ask, why was it so severe? Well, he's been warned 7 times, and then his semantics and dramatics on social media afterward doesn't really match up to his, well, one, he apologized. And then when his suspension got held down and upheld, he kind of reneged on it, so he's not really sorry. But we'll get into it. The league did this to send a message specifically to Shaair, specifically because he is a repeat offender. He has been fined and warned 7 times, like I said. Before this suspension happened, you cannot play with reckless abandon anymore. This is not that. He has also done questionable things multiple times during this season. So this was coming down the tracks. He's had some questions. He's got fined multiple times this season. So suspension was coming. Granted, I don't agree with some of the language used by Runyon in the letter or the press release. However, it was clear that he wanted to make a point. He did not have to characterize Shaair like that, I will say. But Shaair's social media response, which was incredibly tasteless and tone deaf, and I'm tired of these athletes saying tone deaf BS and then trying to chastise us for calling it tone deaf and BS. Don't gaslight. Stick up for what you say. But what Aziz Shaair said after this is completely tasteless, tone deaf, and will make you feel less sympathetic. He's coming back this week versus Tennessee. If he does something to a quarterback, I don't care if it's Rudolph, I don't care if it's Will, and there is not a fight, we're going to have issues. Because that'll let me know that there's bigger issues to fry. Be on the lookout. Now, next little deep down moment, we'll talk about Devondre Campbell, Deontay Johnson refusing to enter games. Now, with Deontay Johnson, I can kind of get it. They traded for, when the Ravens traded for Deontay Johnson, that's when Rashad Bateman was dropping all those passes. So they panic traded for a receiver that they turned out to only target the ball 5 times. So he was not happy. I'm not condoning what he did. I'm not condoning him not going into the game and then mutually excusing themselves and forcing himself out of Baltimore. Now, Baltimore folded. They could have suspended him for the last few games, and he didn't have a chance. He wouldn't have had the opportunity to play against them. But neither here or there, we move on. Most of the Ravens' targets outside of Zay Flowers go to either Andrews, Likely, and Justice Hills. And most of the receptions are coming from tight ends or running backs. That does not excuse the behavior. But I do know that he wants to be either back in Carolina or in Pittsburgh right now. He has as many targets and catches as I do fingers and toes. That's why he's acting like that. But I do not condone not entering the game when a coach tells you to do that. I do not condone that. Because that means you're soft quitting. Well, not soft quitting, you're hard quitting. Now, Devondre Campbell, on the other hand. How do I put it? He is upset about getting less snaps due to Dre Greenlaw returning from an injury. And yes, he knew he was a replacement for Greenlaw. But he refused to enter a game after dressing for said game, walking to the locker room and stating that he didn't want to play anymore. He didn't want to play today. So you quit on your teammates because your ego is bruised? God, give me a break. You didn't retire, but he quit. And he's been subsequently suspended for the rest of the season, meaning he can't go nowhere else. He's still going to be on the 49ers roster until the end of the season. They're going to cut him because that was not something, and you heard the visceral reaction from Kyle Shanahan, from the people of the 49ers. They don't want to be around him. Like, what is going on? When did this become okay? To quit on your teammates for selfish and stupid ass reasons, much less for a bruised ego. Be quiet. Shh. Shh. When there are players playing through tragedy and whatnot, and injuries, that move right there is what deservedly gets people blackballed. I wouldn't want that anywhere near my locker room. He just cost himself the rest of his career. He might as well just retire because ain't nobody gonna want to take him out in that locker room. Hey, be quiet. Now, let's go into the group of quarterbacks that's been benched. Now, Jameis Winston, I understand that he also had an injury. But let's talk about Will Levis. Using this year to leverage him in his development is very difficult. While on one hand, you see where he was miles ahead contrary to last season. On the other, more pressing hand, that you have the fact that he's very inconsistent in showing that. His decision making, while improved, is still very questionable. And he's turning the ball over way too much to capitalize off of promising drives. I don't know how many times this year I've been screaming at Will. Kirk. Now when it came to Captain Kirk, Atlanta had to make a decision. Kirk Cousins had went 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions in the past few games. Remember, he was 35 coming off an Achilles injury. He's pretty much a walking boot. And he hasn't been throwing the ball well. That decision had to be made, and now we're seeing what Michael Penix looks like. Michael Penix Jr. looks like. Then I feel like he's decent. I just hope this team can build around him. I'm not so sure. Jury's out on Raheem Morris. I'll have to see another season. But on to Jameis. Jameis had a right shoulder injury, which led to this benching, but Jameis is very streaky and inconsistent. The Browns think However, when he was healthy, he had thrown for 9 interceptions in 4 games, compared to 6 touchdowns. That's not good. Now, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is trash. He's not the answer, period. But the Browns, period, are limping into the offseason. Now, I understand they did do a deal, rework Deshaun Watson's contract. They didn't add any more money. They added 2 more years, I believe. 2 void years, so where they can stretch out the cap. Meaning, he's going to be there next year. At least. But if he does not play well, 2026, I don't know. Another thing that's been getting on my nerve lately, bad body language. Now, CD's been showing on and off all season. CJ Stroud's body language, as the Texans season has kind of spiraled out of control, has been alarmingly bad. I understand the amount of injuries that the Texans have had, but that is not an excuse to be standing on the sideline with the pufferfish cheeks going on. They've lost Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, who won't be returning for a while. My prayers are with them. And I understand how hard it was to watch the Tank Dell injury, considering everything Tank Dell has personally been through. But you absolutely cannot let that derail your will to win when you are in the playoff race. You're in because you're in a bad conference. You need to take advantage of it. This has gone on a bit too long. Now, with this, I know Houston has been having a bad season. The left side of that offensive line is terrible. Laramie Tunsil stinks. They've been injury prone. The red zone defense is absolutely dog crap. So I get it. But he cannot be showing the body language. This has gone on for a bit too long because I've seen glimpses of it all season. And some veteran or the head coach has got to get to him about that because he is supposed to be the leader of the team. Now, Kyler Murray absolutely should not be looking like a blowfish on the sideline. Granted, he's played a pretty decent, solid season, even though he has been Jekyll and Hyde and turning the ball over. But pouting after you throw a Call of Duty throw is not necessarily the best look either. I get that he's upset that they're officially eliminated from playoff contention, but they can play spoiler. Depending on which Cardinals decide to show up. Now let's talk about the playoff race. Eliminated in the AFC, we have the Browns, the Jaguars, the Jets, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Titans, the Colts, the Jaguars. I said the Jaguars. Colts. Miami's hanging on by a thread. Yeah. And eliminated in the NFC, we have the Bears, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the 49ers, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Panthers, and just about the Falcons because they're close to it. Those are the ones that have been eliminated. These are the ones that have already clinched the playoff berth in the AFC. The Steelers, Houston Texans, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City, Baltimore Ravens, Denver has to win next week. The Chargers have to win next week. And the Bengals have to win next week. So they're fighting for one. Clinched in the NFC is the Commanders. Rams won that division, so they already clinched because they won off of strength of victory. The Lions, the Eagles, and the Vikings. Still in the hunt, the Chargers, Broncos, Bengals, and the Dolphins have a long shot, but I think they're out of it pretty much. Look, the Colts have been eliminated. I don't care. Still in the hunt The Packers probably, have the Packers clinched? Okay, either the Packers haven't clinched yet, or they've already clinched. But if they haven't clinched, they have a chance to get in. The Rams have a chance to get in. Commanders already clinched. Tampa Bay's leading division right now because the Falcons falconed. And the Falcons will be on the outside looking in. And that will be such an Atlanta Falcon way to lose the year. Like, I don't know what's going on with this. The Falcons are a different video for a different day. I'm not going to get into that. We're just going to go straight back into National Basketball Association. Or National Basketball Association. Or the NBA. First thing I wanted to talk about is Mr. Kevin Durant, who apparently hates the new All-Star format. Kevin Durant is an absolute troll. He's so stuck in some of his traditionalist ways that he doesn't want to give anything a chance, but gets sensitive when he gets called a grumpy grandpa. Listen to the reason why the All-Star game and overall experience was so bad was majorly due to the lack of effort demonstrated by yourself and your counterparts. Don't hate on the potential solution when you had the power to stop it from getting this bad. All they had to damn do was try a little harder. All they had to do was try a little harder than allowing somebody to score 211 goddamn points in an All-Star game. That's all you had to do. That is ridiculous. And since we're on the subject of being salty, your peers helped come up with the solution. Quit being weak and address them about it. Mr. Podcast Durant, or wherever he said it. Like, I get tired of his little Twitter fingers. Cause listen to the format. The team composition. 3 teams will be formed from the 24 selected All-Stars, with each team comprising of 8 players. These players will be drafted by Charles Barkley, Shaq, and Kenny Smith, who will serve as honorary general managers. The 4th team will consist of the winners of the Rising Star Challenge. That will be Team Candace Parker. The tournament structure. There's 2 semifinal games that will be played, each featuring 2 teams. The championship. The winner of the 2 semi games will compete in the championship game. Each game will conclude when a team reaches or surpasses 40 points, encouraging competitive play. Cause last year was absolutely the opposite of competitive. Y'all were just lollygagging and up and down the court. Like, can we be real with ourselves? I will give out a shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks and what Doc is doing. I think that's a little impressive. They started a little shaky, but they're starting to get it together. I like his rotations. Yada, yada, yada. And now, back to the NBA and why ratings and all this other stuff is down. NBA is looking to 3-point volume critiques. Listen. The 3-point shot is not the problem. The volume can be an issue, but not really. Allow me to explain. The Golden State, when the Warriors started this 3-point madness, they simply tailored their offense to the strengths of their team at that time, which happened to be shooting with the specialty in 3-point shooting. They also had a very well-rounded team built around Steph and Clay. Teams who weren't built like that started to attempting to mimic the Warriors. But however, it's bigger than just shooting the ball that they found out. It's about how you build the team when it comes to shooting. Now, the Celtics, who are also very efficient from the 3, but they also have the talent and the capability to play from the inside out as well. The shooting is not an issue. The 3-point shot is not the issue. The volume is not the issue. It's the failure of these teams to build balanced rosters. That's the issue mainly. And the coaches are allowing players like Jordan Poole and a few others to get away with taking bad 3-point shots and ill-advised ones. Those are the ones that ruin the game. It's not the actual form of offense. That's more of the issue. That's the issue more than it is the implementation of said form of offense. The bigger issue in my eyes is the flopping, the lack of defensive physicality, and inconsistent refereeing. Those are diluting the game to the point where it's almost unwatchable. It's not the length of the season or any of that. It's the fact that the game is so sloppily played and half-assed rep that it makes it hard to watch at times. We can't blame the viewership going down on the 3-point shooting when and we also can't, let me go back. We also can't blame the viewership going down on the 3-point shooter when the money hungry ass NBA is also making it very hard to even watch NBA games. So guess what? More people are going to do third party streaming, and those can't be counting. And those ratings can't be counted because it's too much to watch their favorite sport. Like, let's be real here. Now we're going to go into our starting five. First, I wanted to get these teams out of the way. You might as well call them the bottom five because we're going to be talking about the Washington Wizards, the Raptors, the Pelicans, the Hornets, and the Trailblazers. Actually, I might just get to the Pelicans because I just might be done. Yeah, I'm going to just do to the Pelicans because y'all know the issues with Portland and y'all know the issues with Charlotte. The Washington Wizards, who are 4-22, that record probably has changed since I did my notes, since I did my script. But they're probably worse. Here's some of my observations. Your floor spacing is still terrible, and they're either too close to the ball or not close to it at all. Too many times is this team off balance defensively and vulnerable to the entire defense getting sucked in, leading to poor floor spacing. Rebounding is still horrendous and on both sides of the ball. They give away a lot of second chance points, and boxing out is apparently optional depending on the player. Now, I will say, I'm not getting on Jose Jonas Valanciunas. He does his part clearly. He's leading the team in rebounding. He's coming off the bench. So that tells you the state of the Wizards. Now, Alex Sarr has potential to do great things outside of Washington. He won't be doing anything with the Wizards because it's the Wizards and they're badly run. The offense, and this is run questionably. Now, when you're just going to let Jordan Poole run up and down the court and letting it rip, that's a choice. And that is not a choice that is conducive to winning basketball games consistently. Offense that is predicated on a wide open three and not balancing that 3-point shooting and actually getting to the paint and whatnot consistently you're not going to do anything. Granted, like I said, the team looks a little bit better when they figure out how to work the paint. Defensively, they're never on the same page. They do whatever. Some people actually try, and their perimeter defense is absolutely terrible. They don't alter shots, and rebounding in the paint off misses is absolutely pathetic. They're 25th in points per game, 27th in field goal percentage, 29th in 3-point percentage, and 23rd in free throws attempted. So they don't get to the free throw line either. Well, when you don't play in the paint like that, you're not going to get to the free throw line. They're 20th in defensive rebounding. And they're 25th in turnovers. So I'm like, they play a very sloppy brand of basketball that I just don't like watching. They make my heart hurt. Now, the Raptors, one thing I will say about the Raptors is this team is not devoid of talent. They are a bit everywhere, though. They have Scotty Barnes, they have GD, they have Emmanuel Quickley, they have RJ Barrett and others, and they do have some veterans that I have liked in the past, like Bruce Brown. I don't know why they have Chris Boucher, but whatever. But the one thing that I really noticed about this Raptors team is they are very sloppy with the ball at times. And they're very turnover prone. Just above the Wizards. A lot of this offense is also predicated on wide open threes. There's a reason why they're 7-22. But this is also the reason why when you have a bunch of guys that can do pretty much the same thing together, instead of diversifying your roster and developing your talent, this is what you get. There's almost no cohesion. Your ball moving and your consistency is questionable. Your ability to alter shots is questionable. Your defensive boards, mediocre at best. And you're close to last at getting to the free throw line. They're not very physical. They don't get to the paint very much. So it's like, they get on my nerve as well. And back down into the 4 and 5 win sector, we're going to talk about the Pelicans. Injuries have ruined this team's season before it even started. It started with DeJounte Murray breaking his hand on opening night. Zion is out indefinitely with a right hamstring strain, and I'll have to go in more in depth about that. CJ McCollum has been in and out the lineup due to various injuries and so forth and so forth. And Trey Murphy is a bright spot, I will say that. But everybody else on that roster is pretty much replaceable. That's the issue. The depth is a bunch of relatively young, unknown, and unproven players. That's your issue. I don't even know half of their depth. To the fact where I can say, oh, they're a decent player. Because I don't even know their names. And even though DeJounte Murray is back, they're still finding ways to lose. The wins just aren't there. Now, when I get into Zion and his health issues, I bet I really bet that he wishes that he would have listened to everybody that was telling him to lose weight, that he was too big. Because this is what happens. Now, it takes you longer to heal from things that usually don't take you that long. You got hurt end of October, early November. Somewhere down around that, I might be a little off. But we're about to go into January, and you still have not played. And you've gotten back on the court, and you're not even close to returning. After a month off. And we know you put on some more weight, because we know you're not very disciplined. And we can't count on you to take care of yourself when it comes to being a professional athlete. We know this. So he probably gained some weight. And now that he's going through the motions, trying to work himself back in shape. Granted, it's hard when you're rehabbing and you can't do a lot. I get it. But you can watch what you eat. And I will leave it at that. So now we're going into the new year, and he's still not playing. This is what being undisciplined gets you. This is exactly what being undisciplined gets you. I want to feel bad for Zion, but the attitude he had for when everybody was saying, hey, don't you think you need to lose this and da-da-da-da earlier in his career stuck with me, so I really don't feel bad for him. You didn't listen. You took it as an attack instead of, because I don't feel like anybody was attacking him either until he started showing up to games with a beer belly looking like he was carrying a little child. Like, him, he aggravates me because he has no discipline. But the Pelicans, yeah. They're in a mess. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Zion. They're saying they're not giving up on him and they're not waving him, but Zion doesn't want to be there anymore, and we know this. He fired his agent because they put those weight clauses in there. He did that. And that came out. Well, if you weren't such a fat ass and had a little bit of discipline, instead of eating everything on the plate, including excess in carbs and fat, they wouldn't have to put that. Zion. Like, let's be real. Other leading stories in the NBA. Now, usually this is 5 teams. I didn't want to ruin you guys' experience by talking about Charlotte and Portland. So we're just going to go into our other stories. Y'all know the issue. I might hit on the next week, depending on how I feel. Other leading stories, including one that makes me mad. The Sacramento Kings fire head coach Mike Brown shortly before departing for LA to play the Lakers, in which they lose. Mike Brown, Steve Kerr, and a whole bunch of other NBA coaches have proceeded to shred the Kings for doing that classless ass act. Why would you fire him right before the game? Who does that stupid stuff? Stupid franchises do that. That was disrespectful. And Mike Brown is heralded in the NBA coaching circle. So of course they're going to come out in support of their guy. He did not deserve that. He turned that team around. But right now, the reason why they can't get players to play is because the players don't want to do certain things that he wants them to do. And the fact that it's been coming out that DeMar DeRozan, that he asked DeMar DeRozan to take a start off on the bench, and now he got fired. Somebody was whistleblowing. And De'Aaron Fox already said it wasn't him. So I'm definitely putting it on DeRozan. Because he was the first person to open his mouth. Like, why the hell would you say that? Why would you say that? No wonder why you... When it's clear that he asked you to come off the bench because you haven't been playing well. You know how not to get him to ask that question to you? Play better. It's like you can score, but what else? When I had to watch a little bit of Sacramento Kings highlights just so I can get into the gist of it. He can score, but he's not doing ish else. He's a liability on the defense. He's streaky when it comes to scoring. And if he's not on, he's pretty much a waste of a body out there. What are you talking about? Why are you getting offended that Mike Brown asked you to come off the bench? You should be lucky the Kings are paying your ass that high ticket price. 'Cause you're not playing worth it. You're not. Like, and for the Kings, moves like this is how you stay irrelevant. You already have a relevancy issue because you're in the state of California and don't nobody care about y'all. But diehard Kings fans, which is a select few. Because you're not in the same vicinity, you're in Northern California, but you're in the same state as the Clippers, Lakers, and Warriors, all who have done more, minus the Clippers, than you. The Kings are going to get exactly what they get. And the fact that they fired him on the phone while he was on the way to the airport, that's some Bush League BS. On the phone? Well, granted, I guess they didn't want him to waste his gas if they were going to fire him pull a Lane Kiffin and fire his ass on the tarmac. If they were going to fire him, they should have waited till after the game. The day after. And did you see what the Kings looked like last night versus the Lakers? That's what you get when you prematurely fire your coach. Now, on the other news, Luka Doncic could miss a month with a calf injury. I will say, if you're a Magic fan, you're hearing the sweet bells of relief because Paolo Banchero is nearing a return. You know he messed up his knee earlier in the season. And there's been 2 fights in 2 days. Last night, Tyler Hero got slammed down by Amon Thompson. I found that hilarious. And then the night before, you got Nurkic, Marshall, and PJ Washington getting into a fight. Now, Marshall said something to Nurkic. Nurkic pimp slapped him. Open hand, 5-finger to the face, and it was on and popping. The suspensions have been handed down. Nurkic got 3 games. Marshall got 4 because he probably punched him. He did a close fist punch back. And PJ Washington got 1. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in for this edition of Jori Sports Stories. Hope you found some sort of entertainment and knowledge in this week's breakdown of what's been going on in the NFL and the NBA. Tune in next week for a comprehensive breakdown of my Los Angeles Lakers, my new starting 5, and postseason Tennessee Titans analysis, and more. As always, if you liked what you heard, feel free to give us a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're listening via YouTube. Also, share it out and let's grow the audience. Until then, stay blessed, stay grounded, and I will catch you later.